After the greatest extinction Earth had ever faced, the planet stood silent beneath the burning red sky. The land trembled with deep, earth-shaking rumbles, echoes of a world trying to survive its own collapse. Across the vast supercontinent of Pangaea, a monstrous dust storm rose like a living wall. Wind roared with hurricane force, blasting sand across the remains of a once living world. At the edge of Pangaea, waves hammered lifeless cliffs, each impact exploding like thunder, reminding the planet that even the oceans were wounded. Through cracks in the ground, molten lava boiled loudly, and steam burst from the earth with violent force. The planet's crust was alive, angry, reshaping itself. Forests that once stretched for miles were now blackened skeletons. Ash fell gently, but beneath it, embers crackled like fading memories. Endless dunes shifted under a scorching sun. The desert wind screamed across empty plains, carving scars into the land. The earth itself glowed. Heat pulsed beneath cracked soil, popping with bursts of fire, signs that the planet was still rebuilding from within. Dust whirlwinds rose into the sky like tornadoes of ash. Their roaring voices echoed across the barren landscape. Yet in this wasteland, a lone primitive reptile walked forward. Each echoing step was small, but it was life moving again. Along the abandoned coast, waves crashed over fossil bones, washing away what remained of the old world and whispering the promise of a new beginning. From above, Pangaea stretched across the horizon, a single giant continent rumbling with deep atmospheric vibrations. A world unified and fragile.
A world unified and fragile.
Tro fell like dark snow as thunder rolled across the sky, shaking the air with prehistoric power.
Tro fell like dark snow as thunder rolled across the sky, shaking the air with prehistoric power.
Mud pools boiled violently. Gas vents erupted with explosive bursts, filling the air with the sounds of a planet still in turmoil. The ground split open once more, magma flooding upward as the earth roared with the force of an earthquake.
Ancient riverbeds lay dry beneath sweeping winds. Along towering cliffs, waves detonated against stone with deafening power. The ocean was...
Along towering cliffs, waves detonated against stone with deafening power.
An enormous meteor crater sat in eerie silence, a reminder of past devastation. Even the wind seemed afraid to disturb it. Storm clouds gathered overhead, lightning tearing through the sky. Thunder exploded with such force that the ground vibrated. In a valley filled with ancient bones, a soft wind passed through. The faint clinking of skeletons echoed like the voices of species lost forever.
Then something new.
Then something
cracked
new.
earth,
From cracked earth,
tiny green
plants
plants
pushed
pushed
upward. A soft breeze carried a rising
Then
hum of hope. A
something
new
new.
age was beginning. From destruction,
From
life would
cracked
rise
earth,
again.
tiny.
When the Triassic period began, Earth was a world struggling to breathe again. The greatest extinction event in the planet's history had just ended, wiping out nearly all life in the oceans and most species on land. What remained was a landscape shaped by silence. Desert winds moved across cracked ground where forests once stood. The sky often glowed a deep red from volcanic dust drifting through the atmosphere. Across the supercontinent Pangaea, temperatures swung wildly between scorching days and freezing nights. Storms carried ash instead of rain. The oceans, especially the vast Pangaea, were strangely quiet, its waters lacking the vibrant ecosystems that once filled them. Yet even in this emptiness, the foundations of recovery were forming. The few surviving plants clung to life along riverbanks. Tiny reptiles searched for shade among rocks. Ammonites began drifting again in shallow seas. The early Triassic was not a time of abundance, but a moment of fragile hope. The world was resetting itself, preparing for a new evolutionary chapter. Among the first creatures to reclaim the land after the mass extinction, none played a more crucial role than Lystrosaurus. Roughly the size of a modern pig, with a sturdy body and a distinctive beak-like mouth, it may not appear remarkable at first glance. Yet during the early Triassic, Lystrosaurus became the most dominant land vertebrate on Earth, representing nearly 80% of all terrestrial animals. Its success came from adaptability. Lystrosaurus could survive extreme heat by burrowing underground, where temperatures were cooler and safer. It fed on tough roots and hardy plants that continued to grow even in harsh conditions. Its ability to reproduce quickly allowed populations to expand across Pangaea faster than any competitor. Herds of Lystrosaurus were among the earliest signs that life was returning. As they grazed and traveled, they reshaped the land, loosening soil, spreading seeds, and creating the base for new ecosystems. In many ways, the rise of dinosaurs and other future species depended on this humble survivor. Before any giant ruled Earth, Lystrosaurus quietly kept the world alive. While the land struggled to heal, the oceans began their own slow recovery. Most marine species had vanished during the extinction, leaving the seas unusually empty. But the first signs of renewal appeared in the form of ammonites. These spiral-shelled cephalopods drifted through shallow waters, adapting quickly and filling ecological roles left vacant by earlier species. Not long after, the earliest ichthyosaurs emerged, small, agile marine reptiles shaped by evolution to thrive in open water. They were not yet the powerful apex predators they would become later in the Triassic, but they represented a major evolutionary leap. Their streamlined bodies, strong tails, and sharp senses allowed them to explore marine environments that few creatures had survived in. These small steps marked the beginning of a new oceanic world. Although life was still scarce, each ammonite and ichthyosaur contributed to rebuilding marine ecosystems. In time, these early pioneers would help transform the quiet Triassic seas into vibrant, complex habitats filled with entirely new forms of life. On land, some of the earliest signs of recovery came from temnospondyl amphibians. These large, semi-aquatic creatures occupied what few wetlands remained, using their powerful limbs and broad heads to hunt fish and small prey. Their survival demonstrated that even after near-total collapse, some ecosystems could still persist. Around them, the first early reptiles began to explore new opportunities. Unlike amphibians, they were not tied to water. Their stronger lungs, tougher skin, and efficient movement allowed them to survive in the harsh, dry environments of Pangaea. Though still small and relatively simple, these reptiles represented the first steps toward major evolutionary lineages. Some of these early reptiles belonged to groups that would eventually give rise to crocodiles, pterosaurs, and dinosaurs. Others would disappear without descendants. But during the early Triassic, they all shared one thing: the ability to adapt to a world in transition. Every creature that endured during this period was part of a vast evolutionary experiment, one that would ultimately lead to the rise of entirely new ecosystems. The early Triassic climate was harsh beyond imagination. With nearly all continents joined into the supercontinent Pangaea, interior regions experienced extreme temperatures. Days were blisteringly hot, while nights dropped to near freezing levels. Rainfall was rare, and deserts expanded across vast distances. Yet these severe conditions drove rapid evolution. Plants developed deeper roots and tougher leaves to survive the lack of moisture. Amphibians sought shade in the remaining wetlands, while reptiles adapted to the hot and dry environment by becoming more efficient at conserving water and regulating body temperature. Despite the challenges, this transformation was essential. It created the environmental pressures that would eventually shape the Mesozoic world. The early Triassic was not simply a time of survival, it was a time of innovation. New traits, new strategies, and new species began to emerge. This period laid the groundwork for everything that would follow: the rise of the first true dinosaurs, the evolution of flying reptiles, and the appearance of the earliest mammals. From heat and scarcity came resilience, and from resilience, a new world was born. By the Middle Triassic, the oceans were beginning to look alive again. One of the most important regions was the Tethys Sea, a warm, shallow body of water located between the northern and southern parts of Pangaea. Sunlight reached easily into its depths, making it an ideal cradle for new marine ecosystems. Here, the first modern-style coral reefs began to appear, built by Hexacorallia corals. These reefs were smaller than today's, but played a key role in restoring biodiversity. Alongside them lived schools of small fish and early marine reptiles exploring new habitats. The Tethys Sea became a center of evolutionary innovation. Its stable temperatures and nutrient-rich currents encouraged rapid diversification, helping species spread across oceans. What began as a quiet refuge would eventually become one of the richest marine environments of the Mesozoic world. The revival of the Tethys Sea marked a turning point. Life beneath the waves was no longer just surviving, it was expanding. During the Middle Triassic, ichthyosaurs evolved dramatically from their modest beginnings. Once small and lizard-like, they transformed into fully aquatic, dolphin-shaped predators. Their evolution was so rapid that within a few million years, they became some of the fastest and most efficient swimmers in the prehistoric seas. Their bodies were streamlined for speed, with strong tails that propelled them through the water in smooth, sweeping motions. Large eyes allowed them to see clearly in deeper or dimmer waters, giving them a crucial advantage in hunting. Many species fed on fish, squid-like creatures, and even other marine reptiles. Ichthyosaurs were among the first groups to truly dominate the oceans after the extinction. They filled ecological roles that had been vacant for millions of years. Their emergence marked a major shift in marine ecosystems, proving that the seas were no longer fragile, they were becoming powerful and dynamic once again. While oceans revived, the land underwent its own transformation. During the Middle Triassic, forests slowly returned to Pangaea after millions of years of barren landscapes. Conifers were among the first trees to spread widely, forming the backbone of new woodlands. Cycads, plants with thick trunks and palm-like leaves, also expanded across rocky regions. These forests were not as dense as modern rainforests, but they played a crucial role in stabilizing the environment. Their roots anchored the soil, reduced erosion, and helped moderate temperatures. Ferns and smaller plants thrived under their shade, creating habitats for insects and early reptiles. For the first time since the extinction, the land looked green again. These recovering ecosystems would soon support larger animals, setting the stage for the rise of new species that would define the Triassic world. Among the most remarkable survivors of the extinction were the cynodonts, small reptile-like creatures that would eventually give rise to mammals. By the Middle Triassic, they had begun developing features that made them very different from other reptiles, such as whiskers, partial fur, and more efficient jaws for chewing. Cynodonts were mainly nocturnal, using the cooler temperatures of night to avoid predators and conserve water. Their sense of smell and hearing improved significantly, helping them navigate the recovering forests in search of insects and small prey. These subtle but important changes were the early steps toward true mammals. Cynodonts represented the quiet, hidden evolution taking place under the feet of larger animals. Even though they were small and often overlooked, their lineage would one day produce every mammal on Earth, including humans. As forests and waters recovered, new reptile groups began to spread across Pangaea. Among them were the early archosaurs, ancestors of crocodiles, pterosaurs, and dinosaurs. Though still small and not yet dominant, they were highly adaptable and energetic, with upright postures that allowed more efficient movement. At the same time, herbivorous reptiles evolved to feed on the growing diversity of plants. These animals helped shape ecosystems by grazing, spreading seeds, and becoming prey for larger predators. Together, these reptiles formed increasingly complex food webs. The Middle Triassic marked the first time since the extinction that land ecosystems began functioning normally again. Each species played a role, some shaping vegetation, others controlling populations, and others preparing the way for the massive evolutionary shift that was approaching. The world was changing quickly, setting the stage for what would soon be the most iconic rise in prehistoric history: the emergence of dinosaurs.